Miss Seashell.
And Mr. E.
We're back again. It's our 11th episode of FOOVentures on this very beautiful Earth Day.
Yeah, and I think some of you probably haven't seen our new deer enclosure since all of our damage from the tornado. So come out and see it as soon as we open back up. It's really great. And we've got 7 beautiful white-tailed deer behind us that you're going to get to see today. And we're going to talk about, so get your questions ready and let us know what you want to know about our little herd of deer.
All right. So, I don't know if you guys can see, we do have some snacks that we can throw to them and keep them in your view. But these are our yearling, I would say they're yearlings.
Yeah.
Not even a year.
Yep.
They came from a local rehabilitator, and they are a little bit friendlier than our last herd.
Yeah.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
But that makes it excellent for you to get a really good chance to see the white-tailed deer. So, white-tailed deer, Mr. E.
Yeah.
They are related to the even-toed ungulates.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, let's see, what kind of animals are they related to? Do you guys know anybody? Can you read Heather's sign?
Oh.
Eric's gonna move over. So I'll tell you
Dust
one.
and shadow.
Their closest relative are mule deer.
Oh, mule deer. Yeah. Wait. What's the difference between a mule deer and a white-tailed deer, Michelle?
Well, mule deers have bigger ears.
Ooh, yeah, like a
And
mule.
Yeah, so like a mule. So they have that look to them. Let's see, their tails aren't white.
Tails
I don't
aren't as
think.
white. Nope. They do flagging, but it's not as drastic and not as
Yeah.
long. Yeah.
What flagging? What's that mean?
Flagging is when a deer communicates to others by raising its tail and showing that beautiful white tail, their namesake, and wagging it around, or even throwing it up really fast. That flagging motion lets other deer know that there might be a predator nearby, or maybe lets them know that there's something to be alert about, maybe a vehicle nearby, any sound. What I like to say is that deer are very skittish, so they're scared just about everything. Little sound in the forest, ears perk up, tail perks up. They might even run away. I know hunters around in Illinois where I grew up say if you move your ears too fast or your eyes too fast or yawn, it scares the deer. So any little sound can spook them.
Hi, Logan, in North Carolina. Are you
Logan.
in your car again watching us? Love we saw photos.
Nice.
Ashley, hello. Kara and Maisie.
Oh, we miss you guys.
We miss y'all. At least we get to hang out virtually. I'm gonna throw some snacks.
Yeah.
Some snacks. I'm gonna show you some snacks. We have some green pepper,
They know the bucket, so they're coming close.
apples, sweet potato. So, if you're eating all these kind of foods, what does that make you in the animal kingdom? Does anybody know? Type in your answer.
Ooh, has to do with vegetables. Yeah, so these guys are really, really interested in that food. They've been given their grain and corn this morning, which provides them some good nutrients, but they really, really like that browse, as we call it. So their vegetable browse, leaves, grasses, things like that. Maureen asked, do they wag their tails when they're happy? They definitely wag their tails a lot. We don't know if it's because they're happy or maybe it's a reaction to them just being interested in something. Maybe they're wagging their tails to keep insects away from themselves. Lots of tail movement going on. We can't say for sure if it's because they're happy. We'd like to think so because they do a lot of tail wagging.
All right, we're gonna see some hellos. Lucy and Bella, hello. Hello, Robin. Robin, Missy's neighbor. Thanks for joining us today on FOOVentures. We're looking at white-tailed deer today, so ask questions, type in, say hello. We miss you. This is our chance to hang out.
Yeah, this keeps our brains active too. We're so happy that you ask really interesting questions because it allows us to kind of think about how we interact with our natural world as well.
Excellent question coming in from Audrey.
Yeah.
Do they swim?
Yeah.
What do you think, Audrey?
Yeah. What do you think? We
How did they get to Oatland Island?
We learned that rabbits swim, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe deer swim too. Abby and Rachel.
They do swim.
Oh, I mean, I thought that they were supposed to be answering.
They asked us. Okay, so Abby and Rachel are saying hello. Ashley wants to know how many deer do we have?
We have 7. We have 6 girls and 1 boy. So if you know the names for boy deer and girl deer, we'd love to hear them in the comment section. Show your knowledge to us. We have one boy, like we said, and he's kind of become the one that's growing those horns, right, Michelle?
No.
What?
No.
What?
They don't grow horns.
They grow?
Horns are made out of fingernail material. They grow antlers.
Antlers.
And antlers are made
That's
out of
right.
bone.
Bone. Michelle's got some props she's going to grab up to show you guys. So these are really, really interesting props because they're actual from animals that have been at Oatland in the past. So these are really, really amazing real life props you guys can look at. A bone on your right attached directly to the skull. You can see those antlers. They do drop them though once a year, usually in February for us, but sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. And then a horn. A horn is interesting. You might have noticed that the horn is hollow. And because it's hollow, it's really, really cool to make sounds with. It's really cool to use as a vessel for holding things. They actually would use them to carry around fire way back in the olden days. Pretty cool. They would use it to keep powder dry. They would use it to carry water and drink from. Super, super cool. And microphones, sure. Trumpets, horns. Horns are called horns because they were originally made from horn. So that's cool.
We got good answers coming in.
Yeah.
Okay. Darlene
Awesome.
and
Yes.
Logan got the names, Buck and a doe. Good job. Then the other question was, what is a baby deer called?
Oh.
Type that in. Do you know the answer?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Claire. Do all deer have antlers? What do you think, Mystery?
Saying all in the natural world is really, really hard thing to do. There's always exceptions to the rule. I know that there's harvest records for deer because they're hunted quite a bit, and because there's good harvest records, we can learn a lot from that data. We've found in that data that there are males without horns. Correct me.
Wait, I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention.
There's males without antlers.
Antlers.
There we go. So antlers, remember. There is records of females with antlers, but typically when we're thinking of a male deer, that's going to be having antlers, and not until they reach a year old. They might have little tiny buttons when they're small, when they're young, when they're that word we're trying to guess about a young baby deer. But they're not really going to develop their antlers until they get much older.
So why do they shed their antlers? Ashley,
Okay,
good question.
okay, so shed antlers are very, very interesting because deer are not like other animals in that their antlers don't fulfill a necessary purpose besides controlling territory and showing off to other females and other males. So what they're using them for is mostly for breeding. And that breeding that happens, they're going to be fighting with each other. And so male deer will fight with each other, the bucks will have fights, and their antlers will be damaged. So they need to grow a new set every year because otherwise their antlers would just be broken and mangled. And as a deer ages and gets good nutrients and good resources, it can grow a bigger rack of antlers, and that can allow it to have more territory.
And show off their
how good strong they are.
Of how good of a survivor they are.
Hi Swanson family.
It's the family.
Mom, Dad, Claire, Ava, Abby and Rachel. I do have people in my family named Abby and Rachel, but they're probably not family members.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Abby and Rachel. You can be part of my family too. It's really big already.
And Maisie, I wanted to shout out at you because you got the answer right. Baby bear is called a fawn.
A fawn.
Excellent job.
A fawn.
Finn wants to know, what is their favorite thing to play with?
Ooh.
Each other?
Yeah, probably each other. They'll do little chasing games. They'll also kind of come up to each other and greet each other with their faces. They'll definitely do the little
Not skittish at all.
booty scooch too, to kind of show them who's boss. If they need to push them out of the way, they'll use their back end for that. Really, really interesting kind of their social dynamics for sure. Oh, we got some Floridians tuning in. Eden, Jaden, CJ, Amani in Florida. Florida so far, North Carolina. We've got some Illinois in there. Let us know where you come.
Cheryl's in Pennsylvania. All right, we love it. This is fantastic. You guys all have Florida where you live. I mean, Florida.
Florida?
You all have white-tailed deer where you live.
Hooray!
So some of you have more than others, right? White-tailed deer are they're interesting wildlife because they have some ecosystem services. That means they help us out.
Yeah.
And they can be a little bit harmful in some ways too.
Yep.
Especially if you've ever driven into one before.
Yeah. It's a rite of passage in the Midwest.
Yeah, so you should be careful when you're driving around at night or crepuscular hours. Crepuscular!
Ooh.
Word of the day! We talked about this before.
Yeah.
You know what it is.
I don't know why, but I remember crepuscular doesn't have the word cusp in it, but it sounds kind of similar, so I think of it like at the cusp of the end of the day. The beginning of the day, end of the day, crepuscular, the cusp of the day. It's not the same word, but I don't even think it has the same root.
Crepuscular.
Crepuscular. I just remember that cusp
Makes
of the
them
day.
think of cusp.
Yeah.
Okay, hi Wendy.
They
Is that all, Wendy?
okay, Amelia says, do they ever chase animals or always run away? I have a really funny story about a deer chasing a squirrel.
Oh.
So sometimes deer get defensive about their food and they will chase off smaller animals that try to come and eat their food. So that's funny. But most of the time when we see chasing happening, it's the boys chasing the girls or the boys chasing off other boys. Because they want to get to the girls. Oh.
Okay, Robin wants to know how old they are.
Yeah.
They're, when you? Not yet. Quite.
They're
Godly Station's 5th grade is watching.
Sweet.
Yay, Godly Station. Good job.
We're so glad you're tuning in. If you guys have any way of asking questions, let us know. We'd love to hear some questions from Godly Station.
This is fantastic.
Oh.
Okay, so someone wants to know, and I can't see. Claire? Is there anything we can do to safely interact with the deer behind our house?
Yes.
Ooh,
So this is an interesting question. So deer are naturally attracted to homes a lot of times because we have good tasting things and we have bird seed out, so they get attracted that way. If you want to observe them from a distance, that's perfectly fine, but if they find a food source, they're going to start to become what's called habituated, and they're going to approach people. That's going to cause issues. So safely interacting at a distance is good. I know we'll probably get a question about them. How do we keep them out of our yard then if they're eating our plants? There's lots and lots of ways to do this. They're very, very, very scent motivated animals. So their nose is really long. We learned those long noses have a lot of scent receptors. They have 60 times as many as a human. So they can smell a lot. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll put coyote urine out.
Or hair.
Or hair, human hair.
Wolf hair here at Oatland.
Wolf hair. Anything that has a scent of a predator. And humans are predators for deer. So that's really interesting to think about. So,
and that was one of the ecosystem services. People can hunt and eat the meat.
Yeah, they provide. We've provided them a lot of habitat because we made a lot of agricultural fields, and they love, love, love to feed on the agricultural fields, and they love fringe habitat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. So wait, couple things. Atticus.
Yep.
Happy birthday tomorrow.
Yay!
Yay, Atticus, who's turning 4 years old.
Love
Asher and Ben, my friends. Hello. The more we get together, the happier we'll be.
Yeah.
All you Toddler Tuesday people out there. Aspen wants to know, do they molt? What do they molt? Their
Molt.
antlers?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh,
So
their hair.
Hair, yeah. They do shed. They especially shed in areas where it's cold, so they can live in very cold climates, way up into the northern parts of North America. And they will shed their fur as the spring begins to warm. So you actually might see it in some of ours. They look a little raggedy. That's because they're dropping out those really long guard hairs and that under fur that's kept them nice and warm when it got cool, and they're gonna get their nice summer coat so they don't get super warm, but they're gonna keep a nice fur layer also so they can keep the insects off, because there's a lot of insects out there in the forest. We're dealing with that right now.
And they have hollow hairs too, so that hair can trap heat, warmth against their body, those that live in those cold climates. Oh, Godly Station student wants to know, how do they decide a dominant female?
Yeah. So this is really interesting, like how we think about dominance. So in a deer herd, there's not necessarily a leader in the group of females unless it's maybe a mother or an older individual that they're taking cues from because they've been in the wild longer, they may know more, they may have better ideas of where food are, etc., etc. but there's not really a dominant one in that they're not like in charge. A deer can choose to move in and out of areas wherever it wants to, but females will group up into small herds, and this especially happens during rut in the fall.
Excellent. Hi, Jonathan Jackson.
JJ.
JJ, beekeeper here.
Yeah, they are getting
They
so
are getting big. And Patty wants to know, do they make sounds? Ooh, yes.
Yeah. Boys and girls in the deer family do make different sounds, and it has a lot to do with breeding, as we said again. Also has a lot to do with territory. So a female will make little bleating sounds, like bleat, like a sheep bleats. So it may not sound like a ba, but it may sound like a ba, ba, or like a lower guttural sound. They also will, they also make little snorts too, and they'll use their nose to what's called a wheeze, and that's a sign of a female maybe talking to another one, letting them know to perk their ears up if they're bedded down, to see if there's a predator nearby. And then the males do like these grunting calls, or even sometimes called bugles, in the kind of the deer family. I almost said corvid family.
Cervid.
Cervid.
Cervidae.
In the cervid family. I almost said corvid. It was silly.
But that's a bird.
That's a bird. So when you have that bugle call, it's really interesting because that can be heard for really, really long ways, and males will come up on ridges to do that. And they'll do it when they're crossing fields to let other males know that they're their territory. And that bugle call kind of sounds like a mixture between, I think, a frog croak and maybe like a long burp, a really gross long burp, and a frog call. It's very interesting.
Okay, so we have good questions coming in. Do they like water? So if you probably can't see, but they've been in this water, the little pond here, pretty much the whole time that we're in the doing this show. They love water.
Yeah.
So they can swim across rivers and creeks and lakes.
Yeah,
and,
they're very good swimmers.
Yeah, they're good swimmers. Godly Station student wants to know, how do they decide the dominant male?
Dominant male.
Ooh,
So,
how would you decide if you were a deer, a buck? How would you decide who was dominant?
Yeah, fighting.
So yeah, they fight. Mystery talked about their antlers and why they shed them, because sometimes they get damaged, because they do this displaying with each other, and then if that's not enough, they will actually lock antlers and have a who's stronger tug of war, kind of push and pull competition, and they can even hurt each other with them. Smack them into each other.
Yeah, there's really interesting stories, and you probably might have seen videos online. They will lock antlers sometimes, and it'll get to the point where they can't get them unstuck, and they'll get exhausted and die. So super, super sad. But there's some really interesting stories about two males doing that, two bucks, but then also three. So there'll be multiple males fighting over a territory and fighting over the females that live there.
Yeah.
CJ, can they have babies? Ours cannot have babies, but in the wild they have a lot of babies, and usually they're reproducing fairly quickly because we don't have natural predators for them as much as we used to.
So yeah, the female could get pregnant her first year.
And they can have 2 babies at the most, maybe 3, but typically the average is 1. And it's not uncommon to see that one baby hang out with the mom until it's 2 years old.
Yeah. So they're breeding in the fall, was it the winter or the fall? Like the fall.
Yeah,
Males are shedding their antlers in the winter.
Yep.
So they breed first, shed their antlers, and then they start growing them back now in the spring.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Where do they sleep? How long do they live? So deer will bed down in anywhere there's a little soft nook or grassy soft area. In the wintry areas where you get lots of snow, they will trample down the snow and bed down, maybe underneath like a hemlock or a spruce tree or something that gives a little bit of cover for them. And they do sleep. They sleep quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and those bedding down areas are really interesting. They're usually away from the food source, and they're typically very thick and very hard for predators to get through. So think about like wetland edges, brambles, thickets, things that are hard to get through for a large predator because they want to get snuck up on when they're sleeping.
Oh yeah, lots of very excellent questions coming in. Shane, what part of the day are they the most active?
Yeah.
So the word of the day today is crepuscular, and that is the time that is dawn and dusk. That's crepuscular. That's when they are the most active. Daniel wants to know, do they make friends with other species, like in Bambi? Well, I know that there's definitely photos on the internet. You can see rehabilitators that have their dogs and their deer hanging out with each other. Typically, dogs are not friendly with deer. They're a big predator on deer. But it's been definitely documented of strange animal interspecific relationships. How heavy are they? Ashley wants to know.
It depends.
If it's a buck or a doe, and how old they are.
It's not uncommon for them, large males, to get upwards of 180, 200 pounds. Like big as a full size human.
Wait a minute. We talked about this with wolves. If you watched our wolf episode, that animals, as you go higher in latitude towards the poles.
Sorry, I'm talking about
they get
northern
bigger.
deer.
So like here in Georgia, if you were from like where I'm from Vermont, if you would see these little tiny Georgia deer, you would be like, oh my God, they're so puny. Because we're higher up in latitude, our animals get bigger, and that helps them not lose heat. So the bigger you are, the less heat you lose. You hold your heat better. So big. Definitely, northern deers are bigger than southern deer. Southern equator.
It's so funny because Michelle and I both grew up in areas where you would see multiple deer and say deers, which is not right. But we both do it. It's kind of funny.
Okay. Godly Station student wants to know, what is their lifespan? So, like 20 years, 23 years in captivity?
Yeah.
That's in captivity.
They can get very, very old in captivity. Not a lot of stress, not a lot of predators to worry about.
But in the wild.
In the wild, like maybe 8 to 10 is like the peak of their life. If they're getting in their teens, they're an old deer,
Yeah, 2 years could be it.
Yeah, that's,
a
lot of mortality in the first 2 years of life for sure.
And there's a lot of predators, and there's a lot of human interaction too, so they don't make it a lot. So, Godly Station student wants to know, were your deer injured, and how did you get them?
They were injured in their brains.
What? Tell us more about that mystery.
Yeah, so we think of our injuries with our animals in regards to their physical injuries. They might have a physical injury, or they might have a mental injury, or a brain injury. And I don't mean concussive injury or hurt brain. I mean that they were learning something that they shouldn't be learning because they were introduced to humans maybe at too young of an age because someone grabbed them up and tried to raise them, or they got in a bad accident, or someone picked them up. The biggest PSA that we can do today, public service announcement from Oatland Island, is that a baby deer, which a lot of you said fawn, we're so happy we got good guesses on that, a fawn with those spots is meant to be alone. If you find a fawn alone, that's how it's supposed to be. Female's going to come back to give it food by nursing, and they're going to leave it so that the scent of the female does not attract a predator. Baby fawns do not smell. Because they don't smell, they're pretty safe just bedded down in some deep grass.
And they're spotted for camouflage.
And they're spotted for camouflage, dappled light coming through the forest, So really important to remember that if you find a baby deer, you can keep an eye on that, and if it's not moved for a couple days, or maybe 24 hours, not a couple days, 24 hours, that might be an issue. But typically the female is going to visit in the evening, at crepuscular time, after she's fed, getting some milk production happening, and then she's going to nurse that young and then leave it. She doesn't want predators finding it, and it's too young and not strong enough to move around with mama yet. So hands off our baby fawns.
Fiona wants to know, what is a game trail?
Yeah.
And so deer are they're creatures of habit, and they also want to make a path of least resistance. So they will walk on the same path over and over again, and then it can make a trampled area, and you might think it's a trail that somebody made. So that's what a game trail is. You can oftentimes find deer because of game trails. So the Godly Station student had another question too. What do they eat?
Yeah, what do they eat? The game trail thing is interesting because it has to do with what they eat. So a game trail typically leads from a bedding area out into a food or a feeding area, a feed plot. And that area of feeding is going to have anything from, hickory nuts, acorns, low-lying seedlings, apples if there's an apple orchard nearby. They love any type of fruit.
Garden.
They're going to have, maybe get into your garden. They might even go up into a farm field and eat young plants from the farm fields. They might go, once the corn is out, after the combine's gone through, and eat the corn that the combine leaves behind. They're very much going to have a wide variety in their diet. And they might even eat things that you would think were weird, like brambles and sticky plants,
Squirrels.
and poison ivy, and squirrels.
I've seen it on a YouTube video.
Yeah, it's weird.
You should look at it.
So that when oftentimes when deer don't have the nutrients that they need, and especially male deer will consume carrion to get some nutrients so that they can grow those horns nice and big, like calcium and other nutrients they
They're
need
not
to build
hunters,
their
though.
antlers. And I said horns again. You didn't catch it.
I'm sorry, I'm not. I guess I'm not listening to you, Mr. E.
What is scat? Starts with an S and ends with a T. It
It's
comes out of you and it comes out of me.
That's scat? No, that's not that scat. Scat. So if you ever find tiny little pebbles that look like the size of a kidney bean, little black ones in little piles, that is deer poop.
Yeah.
And you know you have deer in your area. Lila wants to know, what is a gamble?
I don't know.
I don't
Did I say
know.
gamble? Like Gamble Road?
Oh, maybe you were talking about the vine. You said that, like brambles.
Brambles. Sorry, brambles.
Brambles.
Like sticker vines.
Sticky vine. Yeah, like catbrier,
Greenbrier,
briars.
multiflora rose, those sort of things.
Things with thorns.
Thorny things.
I think that's what she meant, bramble.
Yeah. I have a hard time with pronunciation sometimes. I apologize.
Yeah. Brambles.
Brambles, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna. We were talking about fringe earlier. Let's talk about fringe.
Oh,
Fringe.
Fringe.
So fringe is really interesting. So I think this is a word that is like fallen out of use. Because I would think of like fringe as like the fringe of clothing, but when I ask all the students that come to Oatland, they're like, fringe, what does the word fringe mean? And they're like fourth graders and they don't know.
I like edge.
Edge. So edge is a better word.
Yeah.
Fringe and edge, especially in an ecological or an ecosystem sense, are very, very synonymous. And that means that there's a conjunction or a meeting of two ecosystems or two habitats kind of bumping up against each other. And that ecotone, yes, yeah.
It is Earth Day. We have to talk about all these terminology.
All these big words, right? And that's really, affiliated?
We have to have our daily bird
I got excited about a
interruption.
bird. So that edge or fringe or ecotone, that is where those two habitats bump up, allows, like we said before, for them to have a feeding area that's different than maybe their bedding down area. So you might have edge habitat like a forest bumping up to a farm field, or you might have a riparian area, a river area, or wetland area bumping up against maybe some more upland forest, or even...
What about a highway up against the forest?
You might have a highway or forest. I was going to say even a rural subdivision butting up against a forest or a farm field, and you're going to have deer moving through those areas and using those game trails like we talked about. Yeah.
Yay.
Their fur is probably the least soft of any animal at Oatland.
Yeah, they're pretty coarse.
They have coarse, bristly hair, and it's hollow. It keeps them nice and warm, so the hollow tube insulates, keeps them warm, and it also floats too because it's hollow, and that helps them with that buoyancy when they're swimming too.
Yeah. Do they have any hair underneath, like guard hairs? Is it softer underneath?
It's a little softer underneath. Their belly's a little softer, yeah, but the outer fur, those guard hairs are protecting them when they're walking through the forest or running away from predators, diving through thickets, things like that.
Dana wants to know, what kind of enrichment do you do for them?
Yeah, so for enrichment for them, it's basically just food, like Ms. L said, and it's often hiding food in areas so that they can kind of dive into them or get into them. We might put a bunch of food, hide it inside of a Christmas tree that someone's donated, and they can kind of dig through that and try to find food in there. They might even eat some of the Christmas tree. We're okay with that, a little bit of nibble. And then a lot of times we'll give them browse that's not available in their habitat. So we might have done some tree trimming, we might have done some garden work, and if we get approved, then we can put that in their exhibit and they'll feed off of that as well.
Yeah.
They also love when the acorns are falling.
Oh yeah.
Their favorite time of year.
Yep. So deer have superpowers.
They do. They do have superpowers.
Do you guys know anything about their superpowers?
I know.
What can a deer do that would blow your mind if you could do it yourself? Oh, here we go.
They're running.
So able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
It's small buildings.
Small buildings. 10 feet. Right? You
Yeah.
can jump 10 feet, a 10-foot fence. So,
Yeah. Yeah, but they don't like run and jump. They like stand next to it and they go whoop. It's pretty amazing.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Sarah,
8-foot fence typically is like what we use for deer fencing. 10-foot fence is like if they're panicked and chased by a coyote or something.
Yeah. Sarah wants to know, do they have good eyesight?
Good eyesight. I think that like
don't see color.
in studies they've compared their eyesight, like their visual acuity, like their depth perception, and also like their shape and movement, similar to humans, but they don't see color like Michelle said. But what is amazing is that if a deer is looking forward at you, and you're straight on with it, it can see you out of the corners of its eye, but it can also see a person standing behind them. They have 310 degrees of vision. So they have a little blind spot right in front of them, and they have a little blind spot directly behind them, but most of all around them is completely visible. And if they move their head just a little bit, they can see all around them very quickly. So they're very, very used to moving with their ears and using their nose, not necessarily their eyes, to interact with their world.
Yeah, deer actually communicate in ways that we don't really communicate. Yeah. They communicate with scent.
Yeah.
And so they have glands in all these crazy places. They have them between their toes.
Yep.
They have them on their, is it hock? Is what they call it? The inside of their legs. They obviously have it coming out the back.
Yeah.
And so they're marking, they're scenting, and they're communicating with smell.
Yeah, and their smell is so good that a male deer will just go out to places and lick branches to mark its territory. And the other deer will be like, oh, someone licked that branch. That's not my lick.
Yeah, they'll scrape and
And
rub on bark.
they'll scrape, they'll pee in places.
Oh, there was a sound.
A little bleep.
So Mr. E was trying to teach me this morning how we tell them apart. So you want to tell them a little bit about
so
how we tell them apart?
They do all have different markings, and especially when they're young, their spot patterns are all different. As they age, it's a little bit harder to tell them apart. If you interact with them every day, like our animal care, you can get really good at it. A lot of it has to do with size, even the size of their head. Personality for sure. We have some that are a little more shy, a little more skittish. Definitely their markings around their face, because their face have different markings, different colorations. And then one of the main things is kind of how they interact with the other deer. So we did say personality, but personality is more like what we attribute to them. When we think about how they interact with the other deer, they might be the one that, is always in the back, and we might call that one shy, but for the other deer, they're like, oh, that's the one who's just being safe. So it's not necessarily that they're shy, it's just that they're a little more safe. So we hate to anthropomorphize too much, make things seem like humans, make animals into humans, give them human traits and qualities, but we kind of have to remember that if we say shy, maybe that just means that they're a little bit more skittish, a little bit more scared around humans, a little more natural fear, which can be a good thing, especially because we're big scary predators, right?
Godly Station student wants to know, where can you find deer in the wild? Well, actually, deer have a really diverse habitat preference, so you don't have to go far. I've actually seen them on the Truman Parkway running across the street. So they can be found in forested areas, open fields and meadows, farms, suburbia.
Yep. If they have nice little corridors around highways that they can move back and forth, they'll be basically everywhere. And so we see cities, big cities, they're just on the fringes of those big cities. They need areas to feed off of, so if they can't go into the concrete jungle, but they can definitely feed outside of that. So probably the best place in this area to see them, I think probably, is out at Fort Pulaski. or maybe if you go over to Skidaway Island State Park.
Ooh, Annie, we can answer that question. If you go to Fort Pulaski, there's a predator there. Does anybody know what predator has been known and seen and spotted around, even on Tybee?
Yeah.
Does anybody know what it is? Type in your answer. If you know, we have them even around here on Oatland Island, places.
Yep.
Does anybody know what it is? It's in the Canidae family. Anybody know? It's not a wolf. Guess. Type in your guesses. What animal on Fort Pulaski? So, give you a second. See if anybody knows what it is. So humans are a predator.
Yeah, we're there.
If you're in the Florida Keys, not the Keys, sorry.
Everglades.
The Everglades, there's a big cat.
Also alligators.
Oh, and alligators. Yeah, alligators definitely, if they come up to the edge, drink water, that's when they'll grab them. Lucy!
Oh!
Good job.
Good job.
Coyote.
Coyote.
Yep, we have coyotes. They're a good predator. If it's a fawn, there's all kinds of animals that could take a fawn.
Yep. Yeah.
It's good questions. Can you make treats to leave out for them?
Yeah.
Can you, like, meaning like you or us?
Yeah, it's not good for anyone to feed wildlife. It's really hard to think about like how this has an impact on them, but it allows them to become used to people. And if they become used to people and they think, oh, this house has food, then I'll go to the other house across from the that house, but I have to cross that busy road, and that's when we get into trouble. So encouraging movement through suburban areas can cause a lot of issues for deer. So we advise that you don't feed deer. We think it's really important that we let wildlife be wild. While we say this, we know like it's hard because you put your bird seed out for your wild birds, and that's a natural food for them, and we like to see them and interact with them. And that's great. But if you can keep a bird feeder that keeps the deer out, that's always a good thing.
Jacqueline wants to know, do they have different traits in captivity?
Yeah, they don't get scared as easily.
And they live longer.
And they don't run away.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they have much better teeth.
Healthier.
They're healthier. They have veterinary care, and because of that, they have much better lifespans. Longevity is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Longevity.
Well, my friends, we did it again. Our 11th edition of FOOVentures on this very special 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Please go outside, count birds, do something, look for nature, celebrate this wonderful planet, this natural world that we are that we live on.
Yeah.
Reduce, reuse, recycle, rot.
Yeah.
That's what we can all do to help out animals, even deer. So we hope you get to celebrate Earth Day, and tell us for next Friday, this Friday, tell us what animal / bird, what theme, or what do you want us to do? Where do you want to hang out with us?
Yeah. SCC PSS channel 195.
Ooh, yeah.
For all you cable viewers out there, we can be viewed there or on YouTube. If you got an internet connection, go see us on YouTube. We're on the Friends of Oatland Island Wildlife Center YouTube channel, FOOVentures. And I think that you should have some homework today.
Oh.
Okay, so for Earth Day, I'd like you guys to have some homework, and it's about consumption. I know consumption is kind of a hot topic right now, so I want you to think about an individual thing in your home. So maybe a thing with lots of parts, maybe your refrigerator, your stove, your TV, and think about where all those things came from and how many people had to touch them, to make them, and to build them, and all the energy and resources it took to get it to your house, and maybe how long you're going to use that, and how long you're going to keep that before all those resources go somewhere else. Maybe they get recycled, maybe they go to the dump, and how that is a responsible thing you think about as reducing the impact you have on our planet.
Yeah, and I want to give you some homework too. My homework is I want you to go outside, and I want you to find an interesting bug, and maybe to learn a bird.
Ooh, yeah.
Learn a new bird or two.
There's lots of new birds right now. Spring
Because
migration.
Eco-literacy is very important.
Yep.
We all need to learn what is going on around us so that we can love and protect it. Email your answers, your pictures, things you find to info@oatlandisland.org. info@oatlandisland.org. I'm sure Miss Dawn can put it on the website. Yeah, send us your photos, your pictures, your answers about your consumption item.
Post them in the comments.
Show us your bug.
We're everywhere.
Show us your bird or anything cool. Like last night I saw a little possum running around.
Oh yeah.
I didn't take a picture though.
Okay. info@friendsofoatland.org.
Oops.
info@friendsofoatland.org.
info@friendsofoatland.org.
Yeah, that was 3 times we said it.
Okay.
I would give you a high five, but we're not allowed.
All right. Until Friday.
Stay safe, guys.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.